welcome back, everybody. I hope that was a fun kind of quick exercise of introducing yourself with everybody else in the room. I know I had fun with my room as well, so maybe really quickly, let's get to know each other's group names and then maybe who is part of your group. So maybe I can ask if it's okay, Teresa, for you to quickly introduce our group and who's part of it. If you, I can help you in case you forget anybody, but quickly, could you please introduce what group one's name is?
Okay, thank you for putting me on the spot. So our name is quite interesting. Our name is Banana Soul Food. And top of my head, I don't remember all my colleagues. Yeah, so I'll pass it over back to you. Thanks.
No worries. So we had Teresa from the UN University, Shmiti from Greener, Anthony from Smart Regional Consultants, Akita from Shona. So that's Banana Soul Food with us today. Thank you so much. Group two would like to introduce the group and their name. So this is Dr. Wanida, Himakshi, Hassan, and Jacqueline. Anybody from this group who wants to?
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Himakshi.
So we had in our group Dr. Wanida from Crescendo, Jacqueline from Thinker Ventures, Hussein, and myself, and we have taken the liberty to go along with the name, but it's called Chicken Dumplings with the Side of Oxtails.
What a long name. Chicken dumplings with a side of oxtails. Got it. Great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for introducing your group. And then last but not least, group number 3 with Chan, Lydia, Mitra, and Sophia. Anybody who'd like to introduce? Yeah, go ahead, Mitra.
I can go. Yeah. So our group was was Sophia from Pollinate, Lydia from Jacob's Ladder, and Ninian from FutureCo, and Cheyenne from FutureCo. And our name was Weird and Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Weird and Wonderful.
Weird and wonderful. Got it. Thank you so
anything
much.
strange.
Right. Was that because the favorite food was kind of different than your usual?
Well, mine was Wichita grubs, and Cheyenne's was some fermented old Filipino egg thing, which I can't remember the name of. It sounded great.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Mitra. And thank you, everybody. So just for those who came in right now, we just started with a quick introduction. So you will be with a group later for our activity, but we just had a quick introduction for in small groups and breakout groups, and we created our 3 kind of small groups. So Banana Soul Food, if you want to react, whoever's part of that group, Chicken Dumplings with a side of oxtails, and then lastly, Weird and Wonderful. So awesome. And I hope that created a little bit of a spark to get to know the people within your group. All right, so we will get ourselves started for the actual session. Thank you, Aditi, for sharing. All right, so before we start our discussion for today, I'd like for our speakers to please introduce themselves. So I'll give the floor to Chan and Dr. Wanida real quick to maybe introduce a little bit about themselves, and then for the bigger group to introduce also the favorite food, the things that you like to eat to get us started for the fun question. So maybe we'll start with Chan to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chaan. Yeah, I'm from the FutureCo. We just renamed our organization from FoodFutureCo to the FutureCo. Later on in what I'm going to be sharing, you will know why. Yeah, I'm a progressive social development professional and an experienced advocacy campaigner who has worked in social development space here in the Philippines and in ASEAN. I was sharing to Mitra a while ago because he loves exotic food that when he goes here in the Philippines, he should try balot. That's why, which is really good if you like put vinegar and salt in it. Yeah. My favorite food is that one. And also, as always, being a very Filipino, I like adobo and tinola.
Right. Which version of adobo? So for those who aren't from the Philippines, there are different like regional variants of adobo. So which one do you like to add in terms of adobo? Is it the vinegar and soy sauce, or is there a twist with the adobo that
Oh,
you
there's a
usually do?
twist, like the adobo with the coconut milk. I really love
Oh my
that.
gosh, that sounds so
And,
good.
and something so spicy. Yeah, I really love that. Chicken or pork, I don't
Awesome.
mind.
Great. Thank you, Chaan.
Oh, thank you,
Awesome. So
Rod.
anybody who wants to try balut, let us know. We're here in Manila we'd be happy to introduce it to you. All right, Dr. Wanida, please go ahead.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Wanida Lewis. I'm the founder and managing director of Crescendo Foods. We are a culinary incubator located in Accra, Ghana. I'm originally from the U.S. I was born in Philadelphia, raised in New Jersey, or South New Jersey, so right outside of the city. My favorite food, I said, was oxtails with rice. It's a little bit of a ode to my Caribbean heritage, but also love Philly cheesesteaks, obviously. And I can't wait to share some insights about starting Crescendo, being the first in West Africa, and having the first shared kitchen space in Ghana. And Rod, I do love, and to Shan's point, I love Filipino food. My neighbors and one of my really good friends from from childhood is Filipino. So I know a little bit about Filipino food. The adobo is with the coconut milk is top tier.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear. And I'm so
It is
excited to
top
try
tier.
the oxtails too, Dr. Wanida. That sounds
Oh my
really good
God.
as
Yes, yes.
well.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, great. Great to meet both of our speakers. Really honored and happy to have both of you with us today to share your experience. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Anne and the FutureCo to share their experience on incubation when it comes to food security and innovation.
Okay, thank you for that, Rod. I'm just gonna be sharing my screen. Um, Let me know if you can you see my
Yeah.
screen?
Can see your screen. Mhm.
Okay, so
Of course.
yeah, I'm Chaan again from the FutureCo, formerly FoodFutureCo, an accelerator and incubator that supports mission-driven food and agriculture ventures. We began in the US. Much of our early work was with startups in the global north. But just last year, we started expanding into the global south, into places like Bhutan, the Philippines, and then now we're in an early stage conversation with some prospects in Vietnam and Costa Rica, and hopefully more. And to be honest, this shift of Food Future Co to the Future Co from global north to global south, it has been humbling because it is not about bringing a playbook from New York or San Francisco. It is about unlearning, it is about listening and building with the people who actually live and feed within fragile, beautiful, and complex systems. Here in the Philippines and across so many parts of Asia, Africa, and Latin farmers face a daily storm, literally and economically. They grow food, but many go hungry. They till the land, but rarely own it. And their livelihoods are now under threat, not just from climate disasters, but from land conversion, speculation, and neglect. Yet, despite all that, they continue to plant, save seeds, and care for communities. And that is where innovation really begins, with those who keep feeding us even when the system fails them. So today, when I speak about innovation, I do not mean startups in the Western sense. I mean survival that becomes creativity. That is the real innovation story of the Global South. Agriculture innovation today is not just about high yields alone. In Filipino, we call it ani. It is about systems, the deep interconnection between soil, health, culture, and climate. We've been seeing three big shifts globally, right? But let's view them through our lens from the global south. First, from agtech to agroecology. In the north, in the US, this shift means digital tools integrating with regenerative farming. In the South, it is more basic, it is more radical. It is about access, it is about agency. And innovation here starts not with sensors, not with AI, right? But with land, with water, and fair prices, with farmers who have to fight for the right just to stay on their soil. So think of like rice farmers in Nueva Ecija, or smallholder cacao growers in Ghana, or fisher folk in Indonesia who still depend on community-led weather knowledge. Agroecology for us is both memory and movement. It blends ancestral wisdom with appropriate technology, the kind that doesn't displace farmers but dignifies them. It is not about being high tech or low tech. It is about right tech, whatever helps people live well with the land. And the second, from supply chains to value webs. In many global south countries, supply chain sounds too clean, too linear. But we know that our food systems are messy, but they are alive. They are built by women in community markets, young people running motorcycle deliveries, and farmer cooperatives pooling trucks and storage to save cost. And these informal networks from Mindanao to Medellin, Quezon to Kerala are not broken systems. They are seeds of circular economies. And we believe our role as incubators and accelerators is not to formalize them out of existence, but to strengthen the links, connecting local markets to capital, policy, and care to help these webs thrive, not be replaced. And that is regeneration in practice, when everyday relationships create resilience. And the third, what happened with FoodFutureCo, from being an accelerator to now an ecosystem co-builders. Incubators and accelerators like ours are being asked to evolve. It is no longer about how many startups we launch or how fast we scale. It is about how many communities we sustain. Acceleration in our part of the world cannot mean rushing. It must mean rooting. So we're learning to shift our focus from speed to stewardship, from programs to partnerships, from competition to cooperation. That's the real work now, building ecosystems that can stand on their own. When FoodFutureCo started, we supported mission-driven food and agricultural startups in the US. There are some from India, like Pilon. We had one in Cebu, the Molinos, in Africa, Cameroon. But over time, we realized impact grows deeper when these ventures connect with each other and with their ecosystems. So here are just a few examples that shaped us and how they now inspire our work in the Global South. I will not mention each of them because we don't have time. Maybe I'll just be sharing few. Seal the Seasons. They built regional frozen supply chains, sourcing from local farmers and selling regionally. The lessons learned, localization builds resilience. And that same idea could work here. Like imagine cooperatives in Mindanao or Central Luzon or fruit growers in Sri Lanka and Kenya having regional cold processing hubs to stop food waste and stabilize the income year-round. We also have harvest returns. So they created a crowdfunding platform where anyone can invest in farms. In our regions, that could look like, in the Philippines, we call it barangay. I think it's village level lending circles, or digital cooperatives in Africa. Community-led financing that makes farmers shareholders and not debtors. We also have 4P Foods. So they operate in a regional food hub, connecting small farms to institutions. It's a model of aggregation with purpose, similar to the community food hubs emerging in Vietnam, in Indonesia, and Uganda, where local distribution networks are blending business with inclusion. We also have Pilon. They make compostable liners that extend the shelf life of fresh produce. That is a simple, elegant solution, especially powerful in tropical countries where cold chain infrastructure is weak and food waste is high. And then there's the Hire My Farmer. They are building a digital agriculture ecosystem, connecting the farmers with services, inputs, and buyers. So imagine a version of this in East Africa or the Mekong Delta or even the rural Philippines, wherein the smallholders can access logistics, weather data, and microfinance all in one platform. We also have MCOW. It's a Canada-based chocolate manufacturer sourcing their cocoa directly from the women farmers in Cameroon. It shows that fair trade can go beyond certification, that transparent value chains can connect global North consumers with global South producers in dignity and equity. The takeaway from all this is that incubation and acceleration are no longer about product market fit. They are about ecosystem fit. Capital, infrastructure, culture, and governance all aligning so that ventures can sustain, can adapt, and belong. Like many incubators, we have seen startups take very different paths. Some thrive, like Till the Seasons, Harvest Returns, 4P Foods, Lil Mixins. Some slowed down, like To Market. Some pivoted or paused. A few had to unfortunately close. But we think this is not a failure. That is the rhythm of learning in real systems. And in the global south, we know resilience intimately. It's what keeps us farming through droughts, rebuilding after typhoons, and feeding cities even when policies forget us, right? So incubation for us is not about guaranteeing success. It's about holding space for learning, designing programs that can hold both momentum and vulnerability. Because, even a wilted plant enriches the soil. From startups to bioregions, this is the newest phase of the FutureCo now, which we just launched I think first quarter of the year. So it is about moving from accelerating companies to activating bioregions. When we say bioregion, we mean a community defined by its soil, water, and culture, not by political boundaries. In the Philippines, that could be a watershed or an island cluster. In Bhutan, could be a valley. In Costa Rica, could be a forest corridor. In India or Indonesia, could be a coastal delta. Each is a living ecosystem, a place where food, health, and livelihoods must evolve together. And we are currently learning through these partnerships, like with the Del Norte family farms in California. They're pioneering a regenerative county model connecting the soil health, nutrition, and local economies. We are also building Bhutan's first multi-channel innovation fund, blending the startup incubation with national governance. And then we are also co-designing bioregional incubation programs with some family foundations, policymakers, and development banks in Philippines and hopefully in Vietnam and Costa Rica. So still in the exploratory stage. And then we also have Agrelus we're trying to work out a Global South Farmer program, that because right now the program that they have is for the US. So we're thinking, what kind of program should we co-design in the Global South? Something that merges digital access with grounded community-based distribution. My point is that each one of these bioregions are still evolving. They are in the stage of MOUs, joint ventures co-designing, bi-weekly co-design sessions, and learning loops. But the lesson is the same, I think, everywhere. Innovation must belong to the place. It must speak the language of the people. It must speak the rhythm of the land. And we've learned a few hard but important lessons. First, funding gaps, right? Regeneration takes time, but most investors still reward speed. And we are learning to build patient capital wherein the returns are measured not just in profit, but in soil restored and communities fed. Second is capacity or talent and capacity. Accelerators often grow faster than the ecosystems they serve. So we've learned to build people first, leaders, founders, connectors, local coordinators before scaling programs. And the third is governance. Working across borders means different laws, different cultures and expectations. So we are learning to build shared ownership models wherein local stakeholders have a real seat at the table. And perhaps the most humbling lesson as a global north-born accelerator is that templates do not travel well. What worked in New York or in California won't work the same in Capiz, in Nueva Ecija, in Nairobi, in Nicaragua. So instead of exporting programs, we co-design with those who know the land best. And that is how we learn. That is how we unlearn. And that is how we begin again. Just sharing best practices that from our lived experiences. So if I had to summarize what we've learned so far, first is that let's design for systems, not startups. Like think webs, not pipelines. The strength of the whole matters more than the speed of one. Second is let us treat local wisdom as technology. Every farmer, every fisher folk or weaver, it carries generations of R&D. And prototype partnerships. We can start small. We can test together. We can always adjust because partnership is a process. Partnership is not a pitch deck. And the fourth is let's build with care and continuity because relationships are the infrastructure of resilience. Acceleration today, it's not about speed. It's about alignment, aligning purpose, profit, and planet. Feeding the future is not about producing more food. It is about creating the right conditions for life to thrive. And if I could leave one message for all of us, incubators, accelerators, policymakers, and farmers is this. Nurture ecosystems the way we nurture soil, slowly, inclusively, and with intention. Because when we do that, innovation doesn't have to be forced. It grows naturally, collectively, and regeneratively. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jan. That was really great. I learned so much from what you mentioned, and I think one thing that really stuck with me is there's a through line of, I think, respect and collaboration with those that we work with and those that we support, and really understanding the kind of contexts in which these agricultural systems that we're supporting, how they've been doing it, and not necessarily just implanting or trying to do new things when there are already things that work within those countries, those localities, and helping them steward better. I really like what you mentioned about speed to stewardship and then co-designing, and that innovation must belong to those who we work with and to the locals. So thank you so much for sharing, Chan. Awesome. Do we have any questions from the group or anything, any insights that the group would like to share? You can raise your hand or unmute. Yeah, Mitra. Yes, please go ahead.
Cheyenne, when we talked in Bangkok, I'm interested in what lessons you learned because you were just making that pivot then. I'm wondering whether you had to change your model for working with startups because the model you had quite a high revenue hurdle that people had to have to work with you. And then it was a very low investment with a lot of it was services, but not actual cash. And I'm just wondering how you had to change that as you moved into a global South environment.
Yes, that's such a great question. And you're right. When we first began as FoodFutureCo, our accelerator model had a higher revenue threshold for entry. And that made sense at the time because we were focused on scale-up ventures in the US market, companies that were already generating traction and needed growth capital. But as we've expanded our work across the global south, especially since the New York headquarters tried to set up 3 years ago the back end here in Manila, and then now wanting to expand in Vietnam because of this partnership with Sky Mavis. We've realized that the context is completely different. Many brilliant entrepreneurs and farmer-led ventures here are still early stage. often operating in fragmented ecosystems or informal economies. So instead of using the same revenue criteria, we are now applying a systems readiness lens. So we look at the strength of community networks, local relevance, and regenerative potential, not just income or investor traction. In practice, that means we have shifted from a one-size-fits-all accelerator model to a portfolio of approaches. Sometimes it's incubation, sometimes co-design labs, like what we're gonna do in Bhutan. And then sometimes it's ecosystem building before acceleration even begins. So yes, we have to adapt. We've had to adapt our model. Our goal now is to meet founders and communities where they are, not where the market expects them to be.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Mitra, for the
Thanks.
question. Thank you. Anybody else who has a question for Chan? You can also type it if you're a little camera shy. All right, if there are no questions yet, we can maybe hold it off for later. Oh, Akite, sorry, thought you wanted to ask a question. Maybe I have one last question, Chan, before we move on to Dr. Wanida. You did mention that a lot of the learnings that you've had now transitioning as FutureCo has been about learning from the localities where you work. So whichever country that you are working in, have there been any lessons from the global north that you've brought to the global south that have at least like worked in kind of this transition or in the support programs that you now run?
Yeah, that's a really thoughtful question. You're right. When we started expanding as the FutureCo, a lot of the learning came from simply listening to the localities where we work. And absolutely, there are lessons from our global north experience that still hold value when translated with care. One one big one is discipline around systems and structures. Things like building accountability in operations, tracking impact beyond the financials, and creating strong networks of mentors and investors. So those pieces can really help stabilize early ecosystems in the global south once they are adapted to context. Another lesson is the idea of ecosystem logic, that startups do not grow in isolation. In the US, our accelerator worked best when founders, funders, and community actors were connected. And that is something that we've brought, where we're trying to bring also into the South, but with more patience, with more listening, really, and far more co-design. Lastly, the North taught us the value of storytelling, the ability to communicate vision and impact in ways that attract collaboration. So that is something we also now teach in reverse, like helping the local founders tell their stories without diluting who they are. So yes, there are transferable lessons, but only when they are translated, not transplanted. The key is humility, learning which tools travel and which ones should stay rooted where they came from.
That's a great point, that it's not kind of just migrating whatever you've learned, but kind of morphing it into something that would work respectfully with whichever locality that you work with.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Chan. So far, if we can give Chan a round of applause, reaction from the group. And then, awesome, great. Thanks, Sheldon. Thank you, everyone. Great, then I'd like to welcome Dr. Wanida from Crescendo Foods to now talk about their experience.
Sure, and I'll share my screen as well.
Sorry.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
It's still loading right now. It will come up soon. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Again, I'm Dr. Wanida. I am the CEO and, well, CEO, Managing Director and Founder of Crescendo Foods. So this is a bit about us. We are known as Africa's first food innovation hub, where we are connecting people throughout the diaspora, as well as folks who are based on the continent, to talk about food security, but also being able to help them with supporting their business. All right. So a bit about us, our purpose is, one is that we are the first in West Africa to be Black women founded. We're a food ecosystem support organization. We're based in Accra with an extended presence in the United States. And we exist to transform the food economy by empowering chefs, food entrepreneurs, farmers, and small businesses alike across the diaspora to scale, innovate, and lead. And for us, our mission is not only rooted in economic justice and cultural preservation, but more so in food sovereignty, ensuring that there is global ownership amongst Black communities and over their food systems. So when we talk about what I think about Crescendo and how I was building out this organization,
Sorry,
we are.
Dr. Wanida, just in
Yes.
case your slide is not moving, in case you've been
Oh,
kind of shifting through slides, we're still seeing the
no.
title screen. Yeah.
Okay, that's well, because yeah, it definitely was. All right, let me just do this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take myself out of presentation mode. One moment.
Sure, no worries. It happens.
Okay. Can you all see it now?
No, I still see the title screen, the title slide.
Let me just stop sharing. Hold on. Let me just do it this way.
Sure.
It's so funny because I was like, Rob, we just went over this. Oh man.
Tech things, it really does happen. No worries. Yeah.
Technology. Oh, technology. I was like, you know what? Let me just download it. It'll make life easier. All right. Let me just do that. One moment. Let me go ahead. Oops, all tabs.
I see some people are also introducing themselves in the chat. So if you'd like to also introduce yourself, I see Dr. Mani, Mitra, Sheldon have all introduced themselves. If you'd like to give a little bit of introduction and also to connect with people, feel free to use the chat.
All right. Can everyone see my
Awesome.
screen now?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Okay. So I think I was here. Yes. So just talking about how we exist to transform the food economy. And for us, it's about ensuring that Black communities have global ownership of their food supply and more so over their food systems. In ways how we're doing that is for us, similar to what Shannon said, is that, everybody wants to kind of pigeonhole you to make you either an incubator or an accelerator. And for us, it's about pioneering a model that weaves not only business development, but weaving that cultural preservation in, especially in today's times. For Crescendo Food, we don't see it just as sustenance, but a tool for storytelling, resistance, and movement building. And this is really a great addition to other movement building organizations that may have not served as incubators, accelerators, but we see that in the Caribbean Farmers Network, the National Black Food Justice Association, which is in the US. There is one that's in South America as well. And then even talking about Slow Food Africa, of how they are weaving in, cultural preservation. And of course, similar to Shan, we're not a traditional incubator. What we do is that we prioritize that collective power over competition. And for us, it's about putting entrepreneurs in the same space so that they'll be able to learn how to work across not only the value chain, but doing it in a way where they're fostering resilience by reducing costs or reducing food waste. And then beyond our beyond of what we do, we amplify these, entrepreneurs through different showcases, whether it is media, education, but it's more important for us to be able to shift the narrative in building markets for culinary significant foods. So what we do, we have a shared kitchen space and an innovation space where we are supporting hundreds of small businesses with access to production infrastructure. So we have this kitchen space where you can have literally 2 companies working at the same time, or 2 chefs, sometimes 3, depending on what the work that they are doing. And our kitchen is Ghana FDA approved. And the reason why I mention that is because one of the biggest concerns is that if you are a upcoming business or startup business, you are trying to, get your product on the shelf if you want to sell it retail, and you have to get it approved by the Ghana FDA. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time because you're waiting for people to come and inspect your space. You have to get this done, you have to get that done. And we just decided to cut that all out. A lot of the times people are also most of the time, they're not even in compliance, meaning that they're doing the work in their house. And what ends up happening is that they have like wooden cabinets, and that means termites, and that becomes a problem when it comes to food that can be affected. So what we've done is we have this kitchen space that was Ghana FDA approved, so that if you're coming into our space and we have all stainless steel and you put it on your application, they already know that you're actually in a space that's compliant. The other thing we do is entrepreneurship and capacity building. We provide training, we do mentorship, and we do help with growth support with women-led or diaspora enterprises. And of course, the biggest, we've been talking about this already, which is ecosystem building. And for us is that even though we have, our extended reaches in the US, we do cross-border partnerships, trade linkages, and Pan-African collaboration. And, when we think about Pan-Africanism, some people assume like, oh, everybody has to be a certain particular color of melanin. That's not necessarily true. It's about creating, making sure that these voices are heard within the diaspora, but also we're talking about indigenous as well. And as you can see here, I'm actually grabbing a lovely cup of elote. One of the business we work with, she's actually from Mexico. Her husband's Ghanaian. So it's always cool to see people doing innovative things by bringing their culture and building it into another. So I always say Crescendo is more than just an ecosystem organization. We are a movement builder, and that is working at the intersection of food, culture, and sovereignty to help being able to reshape Black communities and be able to feed themselves and the world at large. So some of the members that we have, as you can see, we have 2 member spotlights. One of our members, he's actually half Ghanaian. He is into the vegan space, which is something that's becoming more, I guess I could just say acceptable in the Ghana culture. I mean, people have, there's foods that people do eat, but it's usually more on the pescatarian side. And also we're starting to see more desserts, because here people aren't really about sweets. But this guy, he came from the US. He moved back to Ghana and, started this really cool company called Fruit Bay, where he looks at taking the ingredients here in Ghana, pineapples, pawpaw, you all may know it as papaya, mango, and he's creating like different desserts and sorbet. So he really came with, having a business in the US, but now he's really starting all over by having an idea and seeing how it looks to the Ghana market. And the Ghanaian market can be very finicky because it's something that's very new. And so what we have done for him is and even a couple other companies, is that we've created like these tasting, once a month tasting market research days, where they actually can come in, we get people to come do a focus group, and they give them anonymous feedback. We take that feedback and give it back to the company so that they actually know real time, what do people think about my food? And it's really, really helpful. The other company is called Talman. They actually take tropical almonds from West Africa, and they're actually grown in Ghana. And they actually produce in our space, which is great because they do sun roasting, and they make almond milk start to finish from our space and using our kitchen. They also make snack packs, and I can gladly say I have one here that I've been enjoying. So this is Talman. And for those who know what almonds actually look like, the difference between almonds everywhere else and these almonds is that they're called, like I said, tropical almonds. I'll try to see if I can hold one up because they're really slim. I don't know if you all can see it, but it's a really, really thin almond, and it's flatter. It's a little bit more oval shape, and it's really good. So this is how we are helping to support. Sometimes it's more so, I think when we think about incubators, a lot of time people think, oh, it's about finding people funding. Yes, that's one arm of it, but for some, it's just really having a big enough space to be able to produce. The biggest, I would say, when it comes to our key successes and getting into that, one of our biggest wins was creating our flagship program, which we just launched this year. It was called Plate to Plate, and it builds on what we believe in, which is the legacy of food sovereignty and also what other global movements have done, and offering a Pan-African model where you see culinary knowledge and entrepreneurship and policy converge to be able to unify the diaspora, especially as you're seeing more folks from the diaspora move to Ghana or just move back to the continent. You know, you want to be able to find a way where you're not creating, you're creating unity and not creating division. And so what Plate to Plate does is literally taking one plate of knowledge from one community and being able to connect it to the other so that they are sharing traditional knowledge. And they're doing that through a virtual deep dive into the Ghana food system and the history. And then they were able to come to Ghana for 2.5 weeks to learn about it through community-based learning and through those connections. And so we were able to connect 5 culinary and natural resource professionals that represented academia, media, the public sector, and the culinary industry. And it was a really great time. It was really stressful. The folks in Pollinate Impact probably heard me, you know, talk about it throughout the last couple months because it's a grant that we received from the now debunked USAID. But it was so great to be able to, I think when we think about not incubators and accelerators, like I said, you don't have to be traditional. And this is something that's the first of its kind, which is a residency program specifically for, you know, folks of the diaspora to come and learn about food systems. And so this is just to show you like our top, the 5 folks that we brought over. If anybody knows about James Beard, it's like the Oscars or maybe the Grammys of culinary in the US. So it's great to be able to have people who are part of our cohort who were affiliated with James Beard and just being able to have that support. And for me and, you know, just Crescendo in general, creating this flagship program is saying that we're doing more than just culinary, more than just incubation. We actually are growing system thinkers and cultural leaders and giving them the confidence and clarity to scale their business and advocate for food justice in a very different way than they have before. And I was just talking to one of our cohort members last night. She's in academia and she was saying to me, you know, I used to think X, Y, and Z, you know, about, let's say, about the, you know, folks who are on the continent, or just not even understanding like the environmental effects of it, of what's happening, how all these things affect everyone. You see what's happening in, you know, the Congo, you see what's happening in Gaza, like all these things are connected, and we all have to think about how to be system thinkers to be able to kind of take back that ownership of what it means to embed not only culture, but also sustainability and equity into these spaces. And this is just a few things of what our participants said that came through and, you know, that were a part of this program, and just shows that it's something that's needed more and more now, and you know, now more than ever, about bringing people together. All right, when it comes to key successes and failures, one thing that I always say, if you're, you know, in this space, a success for us is always seeing businesses enter into new markets, especially ones they hadn't thought of. And I think here, as business owners, we are so convinced that our way is the right way, and that's not always the case. We have had so many businesses that we've worked with where we're like, okay, you have this, have you thought about showing your work at this particular venue? And they're like, oh no, I'm not ready. And then after a little bit of pushing, probably more shoving, you know, they end up entering this new market and they're like, wow, I didn't think about it. And of course it's hard as an incubator because, you know, people want to see the fruits of their labor like today. That's the culture that we have. Like, we watch TikTok, in 30 seconds, we have a solution. And as a business owner, and even as more so as being an ESO, there's patience, right? You have to have patience for that. And that's the failure part of it. So kind of yes, it's great to see businesses in new markets, but also knowing that the failure might be patience isn't always key. So, you know, especially here in Ghana, it takes time to build relationships. It's not from who your credentials are, it is who is your name and who do you know, and which is very different from, especially me coming from the US. The other success is that since we were the first in the space, we have inspired similar businesses to open in Accra, and no one can ever take away that we were the first here, the first to be owned, you know, to own a space like this and to do the work that we're doing. And, you know, for the flagship program, another success with the flagship program of launching Plate to Plate, getting a grant that supports that. I think a lot of the times as incubators or just as ESOs, we have so many great ideas, and it's so hard to find someone to fund it. And then other times you just have to go, like you just have to do it, and the funding will come somehow, some way, because there's always somebody who will believe in your vision. And I think the other success of that is hidden wins. It's always great when somebody recognizes or reaches out. I just got an email last week from someone that was like, hi, I've been looking for a kitchen space and I finally came across yours. I'm so excited. I won't be there for like a month, but I'm just letting you know that I am coming and I want to be a member. Just let me know the price. This is great. And that to me is great. It's amazing to know that. And just also people who've heard about us, like, oh, I've heard about the support you give, you know, and we are a very nurturing organization. And so I think that's the one thing that it makes us winners, is that it may not necessarily be profitable in a way where you're getting buku's amount of money. For us, it's more about the impact. And then on the flip side of that, when it comes to failure, knowing that there's a change of environment means a change of mission. The mission that we first had when we opened is very different than where we are now. And that's because you're looking at what is the trend? What does food security mean? Especially now, our issue is illegal mining is affecting our food supply. So, what does that look like? That means that I wasn't planning on getting necessarily into the environmental aspect because I'm a food scientist by training and a chemist at that point. But I never thought that I would be doing something that tackles that and looking into the policy spectrum of that. All right, last but not least, best practices. So I said, do know what you can and can't do with the resources at your fingertips. Also know collaboration, it means different things to different people, and determine wins that create lasting impact. So, excuse me, I was just talking to someone yesterday and we were talking about collaboration and how it's very different here than the US, and how can you actually show up authentically to make you feel like you're doing lasting impact. I always say to join in organizations, my plug is for organizations like Polity Impact to help you, create community, because it's very helpful. You can talk about your work. And also, last but not least, don't sell your incubator's accomplishments short. If you are like, I've only supported 20 businesses, that's 20 businesses more than than zero. So I always say, just take the time, but also give yourself grace for growing your organization, and knowing that someone has to do the work, and be proud of the work that you're doing. So I'll stop there.
Great, awesome. Thanks, Dr. Wanida.
You're welcome.
That was really great. I think one of the things that kind of you really highlighted that also came from Chean's presentation was how food isn't just about just security of the food, but also a way to tell stories, and also advocacy for the people who do make the food. Like I think that was a really great point to make, and an insight for me. Plus, being able to really create networks and systems that help all these entrepreneurs and enterprises kind of go beyond the usual ways of doing things. So thank you for sharing. I'd like to open the room for any questions from the group. Again, you can raise your hand, unmute, or you can also put your questions in the chat box. Maybe while we're waiting, I'm curious, Dr. Wanida, is there maybe a unique or particular challenge that you found, especially supporting a very kind of specific, right, women-led and also a diaspora organizations? Have you found any unique challenges with working with these kinds of enterprises? And what have been your workarounds or solutions to these challenges?
Sure. I think one of the challenges is that working with women-led or diaspora-owned businesses is that, especially diaspora-owned businesses, people think that it used to be folks would think, oh, I can come to Ghana, start a business, have somebody run it, and then I can go home and check in like every 6 months. But you've never lived here. You don't know the culture, you don't know the environment. It doesn't work like that. You have to show up for what you're doing. And that might mean being here for a year and a half to actually understand how the culture and how the culture is and how people run businesses. I think with women-owned businesses, it's interesting in a way with how patriarchy plays a role, because you have some women who are used to being kind of in the back because that's culturally what they're supposed to be doing. And yes, I I'm a woman, identify as a woman, but the thing is too, is like, we still have the same challenges. And I think I was just saying to someone yesterday, excuse me, how they assume that I was a Ghanaian woman told this lady that she would not receive the same type of treatment because she's Swiss. And I was telling her, I said, no, it's the same thing with all women businesses. The difference is race. If you are a woman who is lighter or you're a white woman, you have a very different experience in Ghana than someone who looks at like me. And I think the thing is that the women who look like me, they're used to being a little bit silent. So that's why we're named crescendos, to help people gradually get louder. And so we have to push people forward. And it is hard, especially if they're married, or they're looking to be, married, because in this culture, like, to be married is a status. It gives you certain benefits and whatever have you that people think they have. And, you're working against that. So we tell women, most of the time, one of the chefs we work with, we end up meeting her husband. And her husband actually is really a supportive person, thankfully. But it is hard, like, you have to be able to pitch ideas to women where they don't feel like they're abandoning themselves or their family, and having to be in a way where, like, it helps the entire ecosystem of your world. And I think that's what people fail to forget. And it's not just Ghana. It's, I would say cultures outside of the US, it's probably, and most likely Europe, right? We're kind of aligned in that way, because a lot of the times we're still holding on to traditional values, and that can be plus or minus. But I think, some of them are both, you see both in both, what does traditionality mean for both parties? But diasporans, I think also too, with diasporans, especially when it comes to men coming from the diaspora, they move very differently. And what ends up happening is that we always make sure that they know, yes, you're starting a business or you're extending your business here. You cannot leave the emotional labor to the incubator. You still have to do the work. And there's nothing wrong with taking your time, because I think a lot of the times on both sides, people think it's popcorn. If I incubate, I'll be ready to go in 15 seconds. And it doesn't work like that in Ghana, unless, or any other country possibly that's outside the US, unless you're like doing something very illegal or something really crazy. And I think people have to just enjoy, we tell people to enjoy, especially if you're coming from the US, enjoy the slowness, because it allows you to make mistakes allows you to actually learn from your mistakes a lot more authentically than trying to always think all the time.
Those are really great insights. Thank you so much, Dr. Wanida. I'd like to ask anybody who would like to maybe share their insights, have a question for Dr. Wanida and her experience.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shani. All right, and I think if there are no questions, I think we'll move to, again, thank you to Dr. Wanida for sharing. Can give her a round of applause. React. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. We'll move to our mentee to see what kind of insights we've built in today's session. So let me quickly share my screen, and Aditi, if you can please share the link in the chat. So just to ask the crowd, what's one insight or learning you've gained from the session in supporting food security and innovation entrepreneurs? So both from Dr. Wanida and Anne, is there anything that stood out as an insight or learning from today? So I see from the chat so far that, we have a lot of people who are working in agri, whether that's food security, some, yes, did mention specifically, some not necessarily food, but to work within agri. So is there something from today's discussion that you feel like you've gotten as an insight, an aha moment you want to share on the mentee? You can also share on the chat if the Menti is inaccessible at you at this point. Right, maybe we'll give, I just learned this a couple of days ago. If there's an app. I can't bring it up,
Yeah,
but
the
there's supposed to
Menti's
be a
only letting
timer.
you put one word in.
Oh, thanks for letting me know, Mitra. Let me try to edit this so that you can put statements.
Yeah, we tried. It's
Thank
not
you,
letting
thank
us.
you. Give me 1 second. Let me.
Maybe we can just put it in the chat.
Yes, you can also put it in the chat if you'd like. All right, I think I have fixed it. If you can try again. And again, you have the option to do it in the chat. Here, I see Sheldon. Meaning entrepreneurs where they are at, not where the market wants them to be. Love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Sheldon. Yeah, I think this is a really great insight in terms of, really understanding who you're working with and not just the product market fit, as we mentioned. Mitra's is the need to seriously adapt Western models of incubation to the global South context. That's right. So adapting, transforming it, right? What works to keep it, but also learning from what might work in a certain local context in the global South. And I hope the Menti is working. If not, you can do as Mitra and Sheldon and share it on the chat. Or also unmute if you'd like to share your insights with all of us. That's also definitely very much open. See Dr. Manny here, that incubation must evolve beyond mentorship into building resilient ecosystems where startups, farmers, and institutions grow together. It's a really great insight as well. Something that I've seen or I've learned in the 1 year that I've been in this space also is, again, seeing it at a systems or ecosystem level definitely is very helpful and then creates more sustainable and effective solutions, especially for incubators, especially working with these entrepreneurs. That's something that I've seen in healthcare when we did our state of play there, in climate, and now in agri as well. So definitely working and building these ecosystems where different stakeholders can grow together is an important insight. Okay, maybe I will stop sharing here, but maybe if you'd like to share, yeah, I saw Chaan as well. What really struck her from Dr. Maria sharing is how food can be a tool, not just for livelihood, but for storytelling and resistance. Yeah, same, Chad. I think it was a really great insight in terms of using food as a way to tell people about both your culture and also a way to advocate for who you are through this meme. So that was really awesome. Sheldon also shared, it's not about how many startups we create or how fast we scale, but how many communities are we actually impacting. Awesome, thank you. All right, one last call for anybody who would like to share their insight, unmute themselves really quickly, or maybe last questions for Chaan or Dr. Wanida before we close for today. All right. If not, then let me just thank everybody for being here today. Thank you so much for being with us and for joining us for today's session. There's a lot of, I think, insights, and I'm so glad to see all these insights on the chat so far. I'd like to thank Chaan and Dr. Wanida again, and maybe just to close us off, Chaan and Dr. Wanida, if, for example, the incubator is just starting to support food security, food innovation entrepreneurs, what is maybe your one big tip for them who's just starting up their program in this industry or sub-industry of agriculture? What would you tell them? So, and Dr. Wanida, whoever wants to go first, please go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll go
Chan, go
first. That's a beautiful way to close, Rod. If I could leave like one big tip for like anyone just starting an incubator accelerator in food security and innovation, it would be start small, but start grounded. Do not rush to build programs before you've built relationships. Spend time understanding the land, the people, and the rhythms of how food really moves in your community. Because in places like ours, from the Philippines to Kenya, from India to Colombia, I mean, the best innovation comes from those already surviving the hardest conditions. So begin with what is already there, the informal systems, the women's group, the young collectives, the farmers, the LGBT, those who innovate every day without calling it innovation. So our role is not to fix them. It is really to connect, to amplify, and to sustain what they are already doing. And I think that is how we grow ecosystems that last from the soil up.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Chan, again. Bottom-up approach, definitely something that is very helpful to hear. Dr. Wanida?
Kind of just following Chan's insights because she's covered it all. I would just say appreciation versus appropriation. You need to come in and appreciate what has been done, appreciate the culture, understand there's, there's craziness, there's methods to the madness, and being able to appreciate it, especially if you're coming from another culture or even another socioeconomic class. Even if if you're within the same country, everybody operates differently, and so you may not like it of how people operate, but you need to appreciate it.
Appreciation, not appropriation. Thank you. Thank you so much again to both Chad and Dr. Wanida for being with us today, sharing their wonderful experiences in terms of food security and innovation and supporting entrepreneurs who do work there. We just launched our feedback form. If you could kindly answer it before you leave, that would be much appreciated to help us further improve our sessions as we go along. But again, we'd like to thank everybody here for coming today. I hope we've taken something new with us, and then hopefully we get to connect and network and collaborate with each other in future sessions as well. So thank you again. And yeah, if you'd like to answer the feedback form, we'll keep the room open for a while just so that you can submit your forms. But thanks everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in our next session.